Hello, I'm Don the Crown, and welcome to The Lion Champ. This is my take on the Reave Blade Flurry Champion build that was first made popular by Mathel. The Lion Champ is an endgame mapper and bosser, and has easily cleared all of the content in the game. This build can be started on a budget, and has a nearly unlimited upper ceiling for gear investment. Let's start off with the build breakdown. In this build we use Reave to clear maps and weaker bosses, and Blade Flurry to kill the hardest bosses. Note that simply switching increased area effect for concentrated effect with Reave can be good enough for bossing once you have enough damage. I've actually managed to clear Uber Elder like this. That feels kind of good though. Reave, Uber Elder viable. For our Ascendancy, we're going with Champion for the amazing damage boost via Worthy Foe, and First to Strike, Last to Fall. The special gear we're using at endgame includes Feral's Fur, Comb's Roots, and an item with Grant's level 20 Aspect of the Cat skill crafted onto it. Please note that none of these items are required to get started. Let's move on to the skill section. Here are the skill gems we'll be using for our primary attack in order of importance. And for bossing with Blade Flurry, you will be equipping these gems in your body armor, with the extra gems in a weapon swap. For movement, I prefer Whirling Blades with blood magic support to help mitigate any mana issues from moving around. You will be equipping this in an open 4-link, either your gloves or your helmet. For auras, we'll be using Hatred, Herald of Ash, and Blood Rage. You will be equipping these in an open spot in a piece of armor. It's important to note that you don't want to place auras in your weapons, as weapon swapping would remove the aura. Lastly, I would recommend a 3-link cast when damage taken Immortal Call Vortex, along with Ancestral Warchief and Leap Slam for jumping over cliffs. Now you may be wondering, but there's still an open 4-link, what do I put in there? I'll cover that in the gear section. Next, let's talk about gearing this build. This build utilizes a sword in the main hand and a scepter stat stick in the offhand. A stat stick is a weapon that is held, but isn't used to attack directly. Normally they provide a significant damage boost from both the stats on the stick and the implicit benefits you receive from dual wielding. These are 10% more attack speed, 15% additional block chance, and 20% more attack physical damage. Since both Reave and Blade Flurry cannot be used with scepters, but will still work as long as you have a sword, claw, or dagger equipped, we are able to use a scepter as a stat stick and boost our damage significantly while still qualifying for both one-handed and dual-wielding damage sources. Starting off, you can use a Skava and a Death's Hand for weapons. However, these are the two gear slots where investment will provide the most returns. Look for a one-handed sword with high physical DPS, crit, and attack speed. Please note that both crit and attack speed affect the base stats of your weapon, which are then multiplied by other sources. This makes it vital to have these rolls directly on the weapon. Also note that we are only scaling physical damage, so any elemental damage from your sword is generally wasted. For the base, I would recommend a plain jeweled foil. For your stat stick, you should look for a Shaper Scepter that has one or multiple physical damage added as extra modifiers. The perfect stat stick would have Shaper prefixes, crit multi, physical damage added as a random element, and an open suffix to craft Aspect of the Cat. As something like this could cost hundreds of exalts, I would probably recommend a Shaper Scepter with a decent amount of total physical damage added as extra modifiers, with a spot for Aspect of the Cat. Do note that most stat sticks will require a decent amount of intelligence, which we'll have to pick up from gear or the passive tree. For the base, I recommend either a Sandbar or a Void Scepter. For body armor, you can start off with a 5-link chest, move to a 6-link corrupted chest, mind you get the right colors, and then a solid 6-link chest like Belly of the Beast. Once you're able to afford it, I would recommend getting a 6-linked Feral's Fur with as much flat life on it as you possibly can. The armor and evasion roll in this item is less important. I'd also like to note that while Feral's Fur greatly buffs the aspect of the cat, it does not provide the aspect. You will need to get this on another piece of gear, and please make sure that item has a socket for a gem. Let's take a moment to talk about the Aspect of the Cat and Feral's Fur. Aspect of the Cat is a buff which can be obtained by either equipping Feral's Bite or a rare item that has had it crafted onto it via beast crafting. Without Feral's Fur, the Aspect will reserve 25% mana and provide the following. For 4 seconds of Cat Stealth, 100% increased critical strike chance, and some damage avoidance. This is followed up by 6 seconds of Cat's Agility, which provides 10% increased attack and cast speed. With Feral's Fur equipped, Aspect of the Cat reserves no mana, and Cat's Stealth is extended to 6 seconds. And upon gaining Cat Stealth, the player will regain their maximum Frenzy and Power Charges. Having Max Frenzy and Power Charges is a significant boost to damage. However, since we're not taking any charge duration nodes, there is a period of time where these charges will fall off. We fix this by using the Less Duration Support Gem. When equipped in the item that is granting Aspect of the Cat, Less Duration Support reduces the time that it takes to cycle through Cat's Stealth and Agility. This means that our charges are always refreshed before they would expire. This is why you want to make sure that whatever item has your Aspect of the Cat also has a gem socket. Moving on, the next piece of gear that I want to talk about is boots. For endgame mapping and especially Uber Elder, nothing beats Comb's Roots. The line, "You cannot be slowed below base speed," basically makes you immune to things such as temporal chains, freeze, and Elder's super slow. This is a major quality of life buff for mapping and nearly mandatory for Uber Elder. That said, if you're not planning on farming Elder, then you can likely use rare boots. I would prioritize life and resistances while completely ignoring movement speed. Since we're going to have immense attack speed for whirling blades, you'll generally be using that skill to travel around and barely ever walk anywhere. Since we need intelligence for our stat stick, this can be a decent spot to find some, since boots don't have any damage stats to worry about. For our helmet, look for similar stats as boots: high life, resistances, and maybe some intelligence. If you're looking for helmet enchants, the ones you're looking for are Blade Flurry damage, Blood Rage grants additional attack speed, and Ancestral War Chief grants increased melee damage, in that order. Note that these enchants only provide marginal gains, and having a solid stat helmet is the #1 priority here. For gloves, you'll want life, attack speed, and a resistance or 2. Spiked gloves are the best base for our purposes, don't lab enchant them, but starting off, any glove will do. A good attack speed roll is worth a lot more damage than it adds physical damage to attacks roll, so keep that in mind. The best belt for mapping is hands down Headhunter, but for bossing or budget, a good Stygian Vice with life, resistances, and elemental damage with attacks will get the job done. Cyclopean Coil is another good option. Amulets and rings are a little different than the other rare items we've covered so far. These slots can range from defensive bulwarks with high resistances and life to massive damage boosters with additional physical damage added as mods, crit multi, attack speed, flat physical damage, or elemental damage with attacks. What you choose to use in your character will vary depending on your budget and resistance and stat requirements. Whatever you decide to do in these slots, I highly recommend that you use items that have life on them. For flasks, personally I use the following: Panicked Life Flask of Staunching, a Silver Flask, a Diamond Flask, Lion's Roar, and Adziri's Promise. I recommend having at least 1 Warding Flask and 1 Grounding Flask. If you're not using Comb's Roots, you'll also need a Flask of Heat. Only on Uber Elder will I switch out the Silver Flask for an additional Life Flask. Lastly, let's talk about jewels. I like to break down jewel mods into 3 categories: useful, damage, and GG damage. Useful mods includes things such as life, resistances, leech, or intelligence. Damage mods include damage, physical damage, critical strike chance, and attack speed. Lastly, GG damage mods are any crit multi-source and attack speed with swords. The damage difference between a 2-prop GG jewel and a 4-prop damage jewel isn't really all that much, which means purchasing a 2-prop magic jewel and regaling is one of the best ways to cheaply obtain sizable damage boosts. Next, let's review the passive tree. I've chosen a somewhat tanky passive tree with a good amount of damage. I focus on getting life on my way to the 2 main sword wheels and the melee crit wheel. I also pick up easy to get jewel nodes. This tree could be adjusted towards more life nodes for increased survivability, or to go even more glass cannon by trading some life nodes for more damage. Lastly, let's talk leveling. As a melee duelist, Sunder leveling is probably the most powerful and fast option available. If you want other options, Dual Strike or Cleave are both very solid. I would not recommend leveling with either Reave or Blade Flurry. Even with amazing gear, these both feel significantly worse than Sunder. If you do end up leveling Sunder, I would recommend taking and later regretting out of the axe nodes on the left side of the tree. Thanks for watching my guide. If you have any questions, I will try to handle them in the comments, or catch me live at twitch.tv/DonTheCrown. I'm going to close this out with a quick Shaper kill. See you later.
Shall obey my order.
They're coming through.
Behold the face of your unmaking.
Father, it's me. Let me help you.
The horror must be stopped. Obstacles destroyed.
To me, exile, quickly!
Imperfect. These memories are mine. I cannot lose them.
They lie to you, Father. I'm your true memory.
To save the future, the past must be sacrificed.